Nobody has read all the Shakespeare, right? I doubt it. Like, who has read all of the Shakespeare plays? Oh, yeah, right. I doubt it. Right? It's like those people that say they read Finnegans Wake. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I finished that. Uh, yeah, I finished Finnegans Wake. No, really, I know you think it's hard, but I did it. I finished it. No, really, I got through it. It's a sham. That's not saying nothing. If that's all you have to say, I mean, it's like you totally didn't read Finnegans Wake, and that was the point of the book, to lead cuckolds like you absolutely astray in thinking that you can pick up the book, start it, read it through, finish it, and understand anything, any of the importance or significance of what it's all about. You'll never approach it alone. Finnegans Wake, you'll never approach it alone. There's no way to approach it alone. It's almost like trying to read the Bible alone, but it's worse. It's worse than because the Bible, in some ways, you can read it alone, but still, in another way, like Finnegans Wake, it's like, how much do you miss? You'll just miss the greater part of the Bible if you just think that you read it and it means something to you, and that's that, and you don't actually avail yourselves of what other people are saying about it and what other people have said about it for generations. There's the significance in biblical scholarship, I would contend. So I came on this to invite you to drop your suggestions. If there's a particular passage in a book you want me to read, a chapter or something, or a short story, that's what you'll see featured in my literary playlists, fresh letters and great poets, also Titanic tales. I have 3 literary playlists. Oh, I also have a playlist called Finnegans Wake that's devoted just to contending with this monolithic infrastructure. It's not a book you just read. You can't understand anything. You can't even understand like a word or a sentence. We have to learn what other people say about it. That's the only way we'll approach the Finnegans Wake, I can assure you. Until then, it's gobbledygook. You just pick it up like you can do other books. You just get a novel and read it, and it means something to you because you can understand the language. I'm afraid Finnegans Wake is not going to be accessible to you. So to sit around and brag like you finished it is to say nothing, because Finnegans Wake is not a book that, well, first of all, it's cyclical. It can't be finished. By design, it has no beginning. It has no end. By design. By design. So you don't actually say you finished it. Also, to say you finished it is to say you've gleaned everything and you've understood it all. It's actually just pompous tomfoolery. It's nonsense through and through. Because even after we've all studied it together, and teams of people and whole academic departments and tomes of books of scholarship and the written on it, and the Joseph Campbell's The Skeleton Key of Finnegans Wake, and approaching it from every possible angle within scholarship and otherwise. Even then, we can't say that we understand everything, and that a large part of it isn't yet still over our heads. That's the true infrastructure of Finnegans Wake. And so I even read some of it. Most of them are talks, and then I share James Joyce reading it, because in fact, when you hear him reading it, he's by far the best reader of his own writing. No one had a voice like him. He was the Paramahansa of bards, James Joyce. When you hear his voice and you hear his narration of it, I wish he had narrated the whole of the Wake. If only we had that. If only recordings existed of him reading the whole of Finnegans Wake, it would shed so much light on it, because what he does read, it's just, not to say his reading is the only and final reading, because it's a book, it's a written book, it's far more than just a narration, but he was a grand narrator, and his voice proves it. And so I share some of it. I do some readings as well. I think I'm a paltry match. I listen to my voice and how I narrate it. I think, man, boy, I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn, Wow. That's what I think. I have a lot to learn. And we all do. So nobody's going to finish the Wake. And then to sit there and say, like these boobs do, they sit there and make whole videos where they have like 100 comments and 1,000 views and stuff. And all they do is some dude sitting there bragging that they finished it. And yet they have absolutely nothing to say about the book itself, only that they finished it. It's like, well, absolute delusion. It's like choosing to live in lies, complete, utter lies. Total self-delusion. It's like, what? A complete square. Just to say that. Because I haven't finished it. In fact, I've hardly begun it. And yet I have so much to say about it. Because once you even begin to glean, to understand even a little bit of Finnegans Wake, you're not going to just be able to shut up. You can't just sit there and say, oh yeah, I finished it. Why don't you read it too? Like, what nonsense. No, you're not going to be able to read the Wake. Nobody can read the Wake. And nobody's going to want to. What, am I going to try to make you interested in it? Like, what a stupid thing. It's like, so what? So no one's interested in the Wake. It's like, well, yeah, of course, by design. It takes so much more effort than any other book. You can't go at it alone. And even the Bible you can do alone. Like I said, it's a Talmudic book. The Bible is a Talmudic book. So you're best not to do it alone. And if you do parts of it alone or whatever, you're still best to avail yourself of the churches and Christian thinking and Jewish thinking. You're best to avail yourself of the Talmud and what other people have been saying about these writings as well, because that's going to be just as enriching as the writings itself. In fact, that will unlock the true import of the teachings. And the Wake is a similarly Talmudic book. So, of course, my narrations aren't as good, yet I give it a shot, I give it a try. It's just like Terence McKenna. Terence McKenna does a pretty good job at narrating the Wake, and his introduction is invaluable. In fact, that's where I started to appreciate the Wake, because I had tried to go at it alone, and like any normal person, your conclusion is going to be that it's nonsense. It's worse than nonsense. It's so far removed into the realm and land of pure gibberish that it's actually insanity through and through. Finnegans Wake, it's pure insanity. Many quickly spoken and conservative commentators have come to that hasty and understandable conclusion that Finnegans Wake, that there's no sense in it. It's the ravings of a lunatic. And that's what happens when you go to it alone. And if you go to it alone and then think, well, I'm still going to read it anyways, and then push yourself through it to the very end, not to say that you're probably in for a good laugh or two in the process, but it's all going to wash over your head like water. It will all wash over your head. The great monolithic infrastructure of Finnegans Wake will be lost to you, completely ungrasped and lost, if you just try to approach it in that hasty manner. Because as Terence McKenna said, we have to approach it with nut pick and toothbrush and scrape away layer after layer after layer. When I first heard him say that in his talk, it's very daunting. I was a little bit intimidated to think, is that true? Could it possibly be that difficult? It is. But as McKenna also pointed out, there are a few things like the wake that will actually generously reward you for doing so, though, for taking the time to etch away the layers. Very few things. So McKenna was right. And in fact, when I had gone to the wake, I'd read James Joyce Ulysses and thought, well, yeah, I missed a lot too by just reading it alone. But it's still a book you can read alone and love. You can. Ulysses. It's very lovable. I read it alone. All I had under my belt was what schooling I had, the few friends I have, and then all of the literature I had read before that. As I was saying, we have to be over 18, 19, or 20. It's like not until then can we start to really find the true inspiration within books. So I had thrown it away, and then I was like, McKenna, I said, it's absolute. The wake it's not worth it because it's insanity. It's not meant to make sense. It's just meant to be like total gibberish. But it's not, in fact. There's so much sense in the wake. There's so much deep sense in the wake. And we have to learn how to access that. And so when I came across McKenna's lecture, McKenna being someone I already respected, that's what it takes. If you don't like McKenna, well, then you don't care if he talks about the wake. Oh, some loser, some psychedelic loser, talking about some lost loser book that's actually just, reputable scholars say it's just madness. It's total insanity, It's the ravings of a lunatic, basically, an absolute schizoid. Well, then it's easy to write off. But that wasn't for me because McKenna, I had read, even in high school, I had read The Food of the Gods for anthropology paper I did. And which I was fortunate enough to have a good teacher who recommended that I read that, who pointed the way to me, said, oh, you're doing your paper on shamanism? Well, then I recommend a few books. And that was one of them. And it was great. I think it's one of McKenna's most accessible books. The rest of McKenna, who the hell can understand what he's saying? He's a genius, but he's out of his gourd. He's totally out of his gourd. Like, man, what the hell is he talking about? I mean, his time wave continuum is his most off-the-wall, theorem of them all. It's just most goofball idea. He is out of his gourd. But also he's brilliant. Terence McKenna was a brilliant genius. And that was apparent in his talks. I didn't get that in high school. I thought, oh, he wrote a book. It was pretty persuasive book and very interesting. The Food of the Gods. I've tried to read some of his other books. It's like, man, it's like, what? Who the hell is he writing to? He's writing, was he writing for Stephen Hawking only? I'd probably. Because, like, you can't, who the hell can figure out what he's talking about? I mean, maybe, because what, he was an expert in plant horticulture or something in college, something like absolutely nominal. How did he get so far into botany? And how did McKenna was a polymath, though. He knew so much in so many areas. And so it's hard to pinpoint McKenna. It's really hard. And but it wasn't until later, I think much later in my life, I was over 30 when I came across his lectures and listened to them and actually started to open my eyes and think, my God, Terence McKenna was far ahead of his time. He was he was a genius. I'm not saying his time wave theorem is absolute nonsense. I think he was off of his rocker. He was totally out of his gourd. But that was good. That's why we like McKenna. That's why we love him. Is because he was willing to say outrageous things and propose outrageous ideas. You know? McKenna. And he was such a great speaker and articulator. And his humor was the best of all. I loved his humor. And all of his talks, in fact, there's hardly any of his talks where he doesn't, at one point or two, have you just completely in stitches. He's so funny. And then if you respect him as that, well, then that's what it took. I came across McKenna's talk after that. McKenna, it's called like Finnegans Wake or something. Terence McKenna on Finnegans Wake. And it's over an hour lecture. He gives a reading of it in the end. His reading is far better than mine. His introduction is far better than mine. In fact, that's what awakened me to the value of it again. I looked at what? McKenna? What? You're talking about this book? Oh my God. Tell me about it. You mean there's something here? There's something in this book that you can understand? What? Tell me about it. What the hell? I was convinced this book is an absolute raving nonsense, that there's no sense in it at all. So of course I'm going to listen. And it's a good lecture. McKenna's talk on the wake and all the points that he makes. I'm building upon all of those things as well. And his narration is far better than mine. He had a great narrative voice and a great spoken word voice. McKenna. I mean, don't you love McKenna too? I do. I mean, you've got to be over like 30 or something, over 25 at least. You know, I think before then it's going to be hard for you to grapple with his transformative psychological foundation. That's he's sort of he's into, in a way. He's a psychedelic thinker, right? So even if I got into psychedelics as a teenager, but I was a long way off from beginning to try and articulate these things and understand these experiences as actually meaningful and real, or sorry, the other way around, as actually real and meaningful. And then once I began to respect the psychedelic experiences as both of these at once, well, that was a good day. That was a very good day but I had to grow up some. And then after that, McKenna's lectures become accessible. And fascinating. He's one of the most, he was probably one of the most fascinating thinkers of the last quarter of the 20th century. And so, and then his talks are amazing. His talk on the Voynich manuscript, thank God, McKenna had all of these interests. He wasn't just a botanist, or just an anthropologist. He was far more than that. He had all of these interests. Thank God for that, because his talk on the Voynich manuscript it's the best. It's the absolute best. In fact, it's the only worthwhile one that's out there, really. You can watch some of the other ones, and there's some stuff to get as well, but really, you don't need anything more. Maybe you do, but not much. The Voynich manuscript, man, McKenna talks about that, and then they come across this thing. What? McKenna on the Finnegans Wake? What? Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. What does he have to say? That's what I want to hear. What does McKenna have to say about this book? So that's what it took. And then even then, it's not going to reveal itself to you. He said you have to approach it with nut pick and toothbrush. That's daunting. When I first heard it, I'd like the first thing you can do to approach the wake, the only thing you can do to first approach the wake, in my opinion, is to listen to Terence McKenna, his lecture on it, his talk. But you have to listen to it like 2 or 3 times, I think. Because what his lecture is a kind of a response and a repository of Joseph Campbell's The Skeleton Key. And until then, you're not going to realize that you need that like, it's amazing. It's what a fortune we had Joseph Campbell to write The Skeleton Key. Not to say it's a perfect book. Skeleton Key is missing a lot, and I wish he would have written another follow-up to The Skeleton Key to go a little deeper, but that's a hard thing to do in the wake, and it's almost an infinite task. But he still wrote The Skeleton Key. He was able to write it. What an accomplishment to have been able to do that. And so Terence McKenna will awaken our inspiration to realize that it's actually worth it. We will repay your effort, even though it takes an enormous amount of effort. That's what he's saying. Nut pick and toothbrush. Are you joking? No, he's not joking. He is being totally serious. That's what it takes. You're not just going to read the book, open it, finish it in a couple weeks or a month or something. You're not going to do it like that. You're not. You have to. The only way to approach it is to listen to what other people say about it, and then go at it like in small parts. Try to take maybe just a paragraph or even a sentence, because the wake can withstand that kind of scrutiny. It can be taken apart bit by bit, sentence by sentence, word by word. The wake can be unraveled. So McKenna was right about that. And so McKenna will, you realize that you don't just listen to McKenna and realize it's a good book and then read it alone. No, it takes a lot more scholarship than that. You're going to have to approach it like an archaeologist with nut pick and toothbrush, and go at it very slowly and take your time. And even then, don't expect to figure it out. A lot of it will be opaque, and we have to accept it as that, because those areas that are opaque, with patience and diligence, can actually unfold. If you want to go into an opaque section and just take it apart and try to look at it, it will withstand the scrutiny. So McKenna, invaluable because of his transmission of the deep inspiration that can be gleaned from this book, that actually he reawakens us to the thought that this book is valuable. It's worth it. It's worth it to take the time. And then in order to do that, he'll also impress on you the need to get the skeleton key. The need. So we're really lucky that someone like Campbell was able to come around and link the elements of creativity and creative inspiration with the elements of psychoanalysis, which actually James Joyce abhorred. James Joyce had no patience for psychoanalysis or for Carl Jung or for any of it, or for Freud, which I think is a merit. It's a little of a mystery, but because that's what actually, that comes directly from McKenna. That's what McKenna said. And it's in his lecture that he said that. Now, I don't know any other source that says that, but I believe McKenna. McKenna knew what he was talking about. He researched his stuff. And so we'll need the skeleton key, and so we will, if we respect McKenna enough, and then we'll be inspired enough to grab that skeleton key, to know it's worth it to grab that skeleton key, to begin to try to unlock the Great Wake. So that's why I throw out to all of you, whatever you're interested in, if you can give me your suggestions. I might not read it, narrate it. I'll look at it, see what you're suggesting I read. As you can see, though, keep it with the themes in my playlists, which are short stories or chapters that stand on their own. And also poetry, classic poetry, especially the mystic and romantic poets. I love the mystic and romantic poets. I love discovering new great poets. You know, there aren't a lot of them. There are a lot of poets out there who are just okay, which is fine. It's a fine way to be. But, you know, Octavio Paz, you know, is not great. Or was, as a poet, Octavio Paz, it's like, man, you know, what a nominal writer, absolutely nominal. How he got an international fame is beyond me. It's beyond my understanding, because it's nothing. His writing, it's totally nothing. You might be able to find something good. Chances are, every poet has something that they have a reason to be famous for, right? But very few have been able to write as prolifically as Thomas Merton wrote poetry. He was a thinker and a scholar. As a monk, he was actually a monk and a hermit who was a Christian thinker and scholar, Thomas Merton, who was a writer, a great writer, an amazing writer, in fact. And on top of that, his poetry stands on its own. It completely shines. Thomas Merton, he completely shines. As a poet. And so, but even then, you can't say everything he did, because it's like poetry isn't like that. Poetry is small. It is humble. Right? It doesn't need to be grandiose. You know? In fact, but it's not like T.S. Eliot is grandiose. No, that's why we like T.S. Eliot. He is magnanimous, without pomposity, you know? Or you could say he's grandiose without the pomposity he's grand, right? He's grand without the pomposity, because grandiose is a kind of a pomposity. It's being pompous, but to be grand without being grandiose is without the pomposity. That was T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot. I mean, who doesn't like T.S. Eliot? What an amazing poet. The Wasteland, Dry Salvages. It's like he was a brilliant writer. What a wonderful poet he was. So I want to hear your suggestions as well. That's why I originally came on here, just to say, and tried to say in 2 minutes, like that I do these literary playlists and narrate them as well. And I'm happy to get suggestions or requests from you. And so go and let me know if you have any requests. I'm going to keep publishing the things that inspire me, the romantic poets. I haven't read any Blake yet. I haven't read all the poets that inspire me. But I have shared Thomas Merton's poetry, quite a few of his. I have shared some of the ones that Merton, some of the poets Merton opened up to me. Because Merton was a writer's writer. So when you get into his thinking, because he was also a very unique thinker as well, Merton, his voice was priceless to the world and to our country and to our age. And so that's why there's a library named after him. He was such a prolific writer and such a great articulator. And he could articulate things in new ways that could speak to your heart and could completely get through to you. Merton was one of the greatest writers from America, from the 20th century. Merton. So I shared some of Thomas Merton's poetry. I shared some great poets, some of the poets he also recommended. You read some of the books, or even the books and stuff he recommends, and the other writers. You'll flip out, chances are, at how good the writers, like the Shoshonians, that was recommended by Merton. Ishi in Two Worlds, Thomas Merton recommended that. These are books I've also shared with you. I've read passages from them in my literary playlists. Good readings, in fact. They're good narrations of good writings, of really well-written, exciting, fun reads, and eye-opening reads. So that's the type of stuff I'm happy to share and that I always enjoy sharing. And Merton, as a writer's writer, he gets you into all these other great ideas. I was going to say some other suggestions by him. I forgot. Merton suggested a lot of other writers. There were a lot of people on Merton's plate. He wasn't just a poet that, like me, who's just sort of floating in the ether a little bit. Well, I'm more of a musician, as you could say. That's my main thing. And then as a poet, well, I hope that maybe one or two of my poems might survive and be valued into the future. That I can maybe hope for, but I don't think that all of my poems are really great or anything unique or special, In some ways, though, I think a few of them are quite good. I think a few of them I've landed some good punches in the poetic arena. I know I had this sardonic look on my face. Literature. It's a big thing. Like, what a flower. It's this big crumpled flower. It's like a book that's actually like a rose. So it's crumpled. It's this great book that's crumpled like a rose. Like the Finnegans Wake. It's circular like a rose, in fact. It's not circular like the sun. It's circular like the rose. Well, it's also circular like the sun. In fact, the Finnegans Wake is invested with all the other archetypes the world has ever known. All of them. Everything finds its place in the wake. That's how great Finnegans Wake is. So it's not a book you're just going to read and say you've read. It's going to go over your head. You won't have understood anything if that's what you think the wake is. And to think that you can do it that way, and that you did do it that way, and that that's all that there is to say. That those people. Nothing more to share except that I finished it. Oh, finally, I finished it. Oh, yeah. But, I know you don't think most people can't finish it, but I did. And they just keep reasserting their lie over and over. It's like, well, it's like Biden. He just keeps reasserting lies over and over again, even though they've been shown to be complete falsehoods. He has nothing more to say except, further lies. Which is like one lie it says that, well, the law doesn't mean anything anymore. Right? He's trying to overthrow the country and the rule of law that we've had. Right? So it's the same thing with people who are trying to say they finished Finnegans Wake, and then you try to point out that no, it's not the book that you say you finished. It's the book that if you've understood even a sentence of it, which is hard enough as it is, it's hard enough to even understand even a page on that baffling book. If you've gotten anything from even just a page, you're going to have a lot more to say about it than just that you finished it. Like what cuckoldry, in fact. Complete cuckoldry to say something like that. Sorry shades, man. What sorry shades that think that they're fooling everybody as well. They think they're fooling everybody with that subtext, that pretext. That they finished it because they imagine that it's like, well, it's a book. Finishing it is what you do to a book, isn't it? Well, then if that's the aim, then I'm going to do that. And by golly, I did it. I finished that darn book. Losers. They're total losers who say stuff like that. Meaning they've lost the significance. What I mean, they're losers. They've lost all the inspiration. They've lost all the import. They've lost all of the allegory. They've lost everything, if that's what they want to say. So I share parts of the Wake. Like I said, I'm not the best narrator, but I think mine are okay. I don't think I'm the worst narrator of the Wake out there either. I think I have an okay narrative voice for the Wake. By far, I fall short of James Joyce himself. So I put a couple of his readings in my Finnegans Wake playlist too, for all of you to appreciate as well. In fact, Finnegans Wake is one of the few playlists where you can find stuff from other channels that I feature on my channel, because it goes with the topic and it kind of goes in order. And there's a lot to say about the Wake. We're not going to just understand it. We can only understand it by even beginning to try and articulate these things about it. So I hope that's valuable for a few of you and some of you, because I always appreciate and feel like I deserve to hear back from you. Maybe you don't think I deserve it, but I do appreciate it when you give feedback to my talks here. It does mean a lot to me to get some response from each of you. and to get the resonance back from what you like, what you don't like. Well, it's not so interesting to hear, but if it's constructive, I'm glad to get the feedback. It's better than silence. If it's constructive feedback that's not positive, well, I do appreciate the positive stuff even more. All the feedback is appreciated. And I want to hear back from what you think as well. And so let me know what poet or what short story you might like to see added to this great extensive panoply I have for you in my playlists section for you to browse and enjoy. Thank you for tuning in to Rhythm's Riddle. I'm Tom's Gauntlet, the guitarist. You can get my second full solo album, Lullabies by Tom's Gauntlet. You can find it on iTunes, on Spotify, and on Amazon. So you can pitch in also to my channel. I sell, if you like to support my channel, I would appreciate the support. And if you want to help support my channel, you can, I try to do that in an innovative way. Other people just try to accept donations. Maybe I should. I don't know why. Someone was offering me a tip. He offered me tips. So, and I don't have any way to take tips from you. So I had to just thank him and say, I don't take tips. But what I do offer is original, innovative, exciting modern art for all of you. Like you can see in these two, the riddle of the guitar and the riddle of the drum. I'll even sell both of these together in a pair for a better deal than I would just for buying them separately. So I'm open to negotiate. So you can find 4 or 5 playlists that feature my original graphic works, my paintings and drawings. And I have prices all over the board. So if you're feeling that my prices are too high on my best work, which you probably think that, I'm not just going to sell my best work to the lowest bidder. Hell no. But I've got prices all the way down to the playlist Dirt Cheap, Rhythms of Light, Dirt Cheap. You'll find great stuff like from between $40 to like $400 to $600 or something. And stuff that could easily be going for, 10 times that or 50 times that. 1,000% more, that's what you can be getting with like some of the works. I even have some of my best work in 1 or 2 in my Dirt Cheap that you'll find there for like $700 or $800. You'll find work that should be priced for more like, $9,000 or something. So you'll find stuff all over the board. So it's a great way to support my channel. That's how I fund my channel. Please help my channel in that way. Please go and buy my art. I want to direct your attention to that so you know it's there, that I've got original modern art for you as well, that it's worth it to buy. It's worth it to invest in art. And so lots of playlists, a panoply of great stuff for you here on Rhythm's Riddle. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe as well. Share my videos. Also, please like every video you watch, even if you just watch it for 10 seconds or less. If you just click on it for just a brief second, hit the like button, please. And I'm not making money off of ads. YouTube is showing ads to everyone now. Well, they're otherwise free. I think YouTube is still pretty good. It's still the best thing out there. It's like they offer these free platforms to anybody all over the world, that's pretty amazing. This technology that they're offering, and that it's free. So don't get mad that they show an ad. You can skip it in 5 seconds. It's quite decent. They're just trying to make a little bit of the money back on having a huge infrastructure for free for all of us that we can avail ourselves with. And by far the best. One thing that makes YouTube the best video sharing site ever, and also the best thing the internet has ever known to date. Like, no doubt, if McKenna was still alive today, he'd probably have something to say about YouTube, because it's an alchemical dream come true. It's an absolute alchemical dream. And one of the things that makes it the best is that, well, besides the massive amount of content that's available in so many areas, it's their playlists on individual channels. You can go to playlists and arrange your work in playlists. That's invaluable. So avail yourself of the best of what YouTube has to offer, and the best of what my channel shares with you through my playlists. And go there, and when you find it, and always like it. I need more likes on all of the videos. I don't want just 1% likes. That's not helping me. You know, I need at least like 50% of the people that view my stuff to like it. And I need a dog pile of comments from all my supporters, like every time you can. Yeah, I know your time is valuable. Drop a good word. Just drop a good word regularly on my videos. That would help me enormously. Just to drop a good word frequently on every time, and to like every time you do it. And then thirdly, you also help my channel by spreading the word, sharing with your friends and family. And you can share my links of any particular video. You can share the link. The thing to do is go to share right under the video and copy the link. The other stuff, I don't know if it will work, but the copy the link, I think that should work. You can send it in a text. You can paste it on your social media, which is paste the link, and so forth. So sharing my content and my work also, I appreciate that quite a lot from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for those of you who do share my work, and thank you all for sticking around and staying subscribed to me.